Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror and detail. Today we are going to share Wendigo encounter horror stories. First story, Skinwalker story. When I was about 15 years old, me and my BF at the time went on a walk into the woods behind my house in a very suburban neighborhood. Before there was loads of houses everywhere, there was woods and wildlife. I have lived here for a decade, so I've seen all of the houses being built from the ground up. Over the year I was 15, I had found and kept many bones like spines, ribs, and a whole turtle shell. I wasn't looking for them, but they found me. Anyways, me and my BF probably left the house at around 5 p.m. that day and started looking for crystals since I had found so many before along the lake trail behind some houses. They were beautiful, and I could sell them for a lot of money if I wanted to. We went looking a mile down my house, and for the first time we could hardly find anything. I'm native, so I understand and know a lot about skinwalkers and stuff like that. My BF was white, so he has some doubts, but I knew deep down it was all true. I know for sure he believes in it now. As we were walking, we spotted a little lake that we had never seen before. We decided to jump over this little gate that was keeping us between the lake and the field that we were walking in. We didn't think that much of it since the gate was so short that anyone could easily hop over it. So we did, and we started looking on the ground for any wet soil to find hopefully crystals. I found one by a tree, but at that time we had our flashlights out, and it was so dark we couldn't see anything. We kept looking until we both stopped at this sudden weird noise coming from very tall grass in front of heavily wooded areas. It sounded like a bird, snake, and a cat's meow all at the same time. We had made eye contact, and I honestly took a step forward because I was almost in this trance-like state wanting to follow the noise to see what was making it. The moment I took that step, I asked myself what I was fucking doing and what I could possibly be thinking about. I knew that if I went any further, I would never been seen again. I was so scared I froze there staring at the grass. I know that if you hear that it's close, it's far, but if it's far, it's close. So I knew immediately it was trying to lure me into the grass and out of sight to probably eat me or something. I suddenly remember the strange noise I heard as we were walking to the gate, and I honestly thought I was just hearing things, so I asked my BF, and he said he didn't hear it. We both hear that noise, though, in the grass. He grabbed me and shoved me over the fence, and we both ran all the way home after we heard a noise chasing us. Once we got onto the street and into the light, the noise stopped, but we still ran home like an idiot. You never run. Ever. They will chase you, and I knew that, but something kicked in, and we both ran home. I still wonder if what we heard from far away was it stalking us already before the sun officially set. I'm 17 now, and I have never gone back ever. It's also so weird since I live in a small town in Texas, so I didn't think it was possible, but whatever made that noise wasn't a normal animal or a person. It was trying to mimic something, but thankfully I didn't stick around to find out what it was. What should I do? Second story. I hunted the Wendigo that ate my sister. Last summer, my younger sister went missing on a camping trip with friends. She had just turned 20, and we had started to drift away from each other. I'd gotten busy focusing on my own life. I left the country for a new job. When I came back at Christmas, I found out she had gone missing. It explained why she hadn't been answering my messages. I didn't understand why no one contacted me about her disappearance. The police claimed to not have my new number and didn't have access to her phone. I was certain her friends didn't want me knowing because they had time getting their story straight. I asked for a leave from work to track down those 4 friends. They all claimed that she had gotten up in the middle of the night to go to the washroom, and no one noticed she hadn't come back until the morning. I didn't buy it. They all said a slightly different location from where they camped that night. None of them gave collaborating details about the campsite. One said they used logs for seats. Another said the entire area was clear. They were lying where they had set up camp, and it caused the search team to be looking in the wrong place. I passed along the information, but since it was still winter, the rangers couldn't search the forest. They promised when the weather got better, they would try looking in other popular camping areas in case the four just got confused. Her friends smartened up and refused to speak with me. Threats of lawyers started. I couldn't do anything else but go back to work and wait till spring. I got the call at work that she had been found. Well, parts of her had been found. A man who had been panning for gold found some finger bones in the river. Soon, with more people going into the forest for the season, more pieces started to be discovered. In total, half her skull, some ribs, and the finger bones were discovered. There had been some larger bones that hadn't yet been fully tested to find out if they were hers. It may sound gruesome, but I demanded photos of each piece found. I felt as if the police weren't doing their job. They closed the case saying she had just gotten lost. They claimed the damage to the skull could have happened after death. After I saw a photo of the femur, I doubted that fact. The marrow had been scrapped out. There also were scratches on the bone the police said were made by animals. It did appear to have been gnawed on, but not by sharp teeth. Our parents died when I was 17 and she was 14. When it happened, I promised to take care of her. I failed her. I assumed since she became an adult, I was no longer needed. I was wrong. If I couldn't save her, the least I could do is find out what happened. Too many things weren't adding up. I quit my job, even though my boss said I could come back anytime. He's lost a child, so he understood how grief worked. I did some research and packed what was needed. Then I drove to a small town by the forest looking for answers. I questioned some of the local shop workers trying to find out what happened before the group went into the woods. Apparently, my sister had become friends with those four locals she camped with. It was the first time they met in person but talked a lot online. I asked if there was a reason why they suddenly decided to go camping. Anyone I spoke with suddenly started to avert their eyes as if they knew more but didn't admit to it. There was an odd air about this town. Everyone appeared as if they were trying to cover up a darkness with fake smiles. After my short investigation, I headed over to the ranger station. I've spoken with them on the phone before, but I figured I would press my luck trying to get more information if they couldn't just hang up. Only 2 people were inside the small ranger station. An older man who was double my size. But I bet he was still fit enough to do his job. A younger woman who looked like she may be his daughter walked around the desk to greet me. She was extra friendly and reminded me a little of my sister. "I'm Dustin Hill. I've spoken to Ranger Dan before," I said, and her face dropped a little. Her smile was strained once she knew who I was. The other ranger didn't get up from his chair. His face was half hidden by a large local newspaper. He flipped the pages trying to ignore me. "I have no news for you," he said, not even looking up. I wondered if he could feel my glare at the back of his head. The younger women looked between us in distress, unsure of what to say. "May I have a map of my sister's last location? I'm not from the area, and I don't want to get lost." The older ranger sighed and stood up. He sorted through some papers and grabbed a trail map. At least he was patient, telling me which path to take and how long the hike would be. He had nothing personally against me. He just wished I accepted my sister was gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. I refused to believe that fact. "It's been a full season. I'm not sure what you think you might find," the female ranger said innocently. "Anything," I told her, and put away the map provided. "I'll be staying in the forest for a while." Ranger Dan frowned. He crossed his arms, disapproving of my plan. Instead of trying to stop me, he gave me a single piece of advice. "Bring a gun." I stopped at the doorway to let what he said sink in. Sure, there were bears in the area, but no one had been killed by one in over 5 years. I nodded silently, accepting the help. He must have some sort of unknown reason for acting so short with me. If I only knew what that was, I may be closer to finding out what happened to my sister. I would discover this town's secrets sooner than I thought. It was too late in the day to start at the campsite. I rented a motel room planning to set out in the morning. After it got dark, I put on my jacket to go outside for a quick smoke. I've been quitting on and off since my parents died. A figure pacing out by my window was also the reason why I decided to head outside. I startled the female ranger from earlier in the day. She had been trying to work up the courage to knock. She almost left when she saw me. It took her a moment to collect herself. It would be pointless going to that campsite. She told me. It is because my sister was never there? I asked her. Her lips tightened, showing that was the truth. She chewed on the inside of her cheek, not wanting to continue speaking. Yes, I hated lying. Where they really went is complicated. I don't think taking a hike is overly complicated. Tell me, I pressed after I lit a cigarette. My voice had grown cold after my sister died. I only cared about finding out the cause and nothing more. I think my harsher demeanor unnerved a lot of people. They went to Rosethorn Cabin. It's a local legend around here. She started. My sister had always liked ghost stories and urban legends. She didn't know what she wanted to do as a career yet. The last I heard, she held down a few part-time jobs while trying to figure out the rest of her life. Had she come here because she wanted to write about legends? She had always been good at writing. 10 years ago, the two children of the mayor went to their cabin late in the season. A massive snowstorm hit. From what I heard, there was a misunderstanding where they were staying. It was a month before anyone figured out they were stranded in the cabin. When a small rescue team arrived, they found the son in good health, but the daughter was nowhere to be found. She let the implications sink in. It was a tragedy that didn't need to happen. But what does the death of a girl 10 years ago have to do with my sister? So, no offense, but I don't care what happened to them. I harshly said. After what happened, the mayor tried to pay people to keep quiet. The son went back into the woods to live in the cabin. Some people say it was to get away from people accusing him of a crime, but others claim something else. That he, became a Wendigo. She almost looked embarrassed saying the word. I've heard about them in passing. I wasn't into myths as much as my sister. All I knew about them was that you could become one if you ate human flesh. And for some odd reason, they had antlers and a lot of images people made of them. Why do they think that beyond the suggestion, he ate his sister to stay alive? Did he start acting weird? Did he look weird? I questioned. He disappeared from the cabin after the first winter. People claim to see a pale, thin, wild man living in the woods. A few campers have gone missing only to have their bones to be found, but with the marrow gone. As if something had eaten it. She paused to rub her arms, as if she had gotten a chill. She also started looking around, expecting someone to be listening to our conversation. I didn't believe in the whole Wendigo idea, but I would consider the Rosethorn son to have gone insane. She pulled out some papers from her back pocket and held them out for me to take. I'm sorry about your sister. Her death should not have happened. The mayor has since become a powerful politician. He's done everything in his power to ensure it's not well known that his son might be living in the woods killing and eating people. Even if you find evidence that proves your sister was murdered by our local Wendigo, you may never be able to get the truth out there. Still, I made you a map of how to get to the cabin. I hope you find what you're looking for. I thanked her for the help. Truly glad someone in this town was willing to tell me the truth. She soon left, not wanting to be caught. People of this town thought there was a monster in the woods. They had been tight-lipped for my safety. I finished smoking and then went back inside the small motel room, ready to try and get some rest. I would need it for the hike the next day. I checked out in the morning. I wasn't the best at reading maps, but this one was simple enough to understand. The trails up to the cabin weren't marked. They almost had been grown over due to lack of use. I needed to take a few breaks because my pack was too heavy. My job had always been in an office. I wasn't used to hiking. My body hated every moment, but I forced myself to carry on. I found the cabin a few hours before sunset. My stomach hurt from stress and hunger. I did listen to the ranger's advice. A small handgun that had once belonged to my father was holstered on my hip. We'd only gone shooting together once. After my sister disappeared, I went to the range to practice. Each time I imagined the target to be a bear or a shadow figure attacking her. It helped me improve quickly, but it didn't bring her back. No matter what I did, she would always be gone. The cabin was barely standing. The wood had rotted the elements without being maintained for so long. For some reason, the forest was quiet. The closer I got to the cabin, the less I heard the birds in the trees. Dark clouds covered the sun, giving the entire area an unsettling look. Soon droplets of rain started to come down. I didn't plan on staying inside the cabin. I went inside to avoid the rain, wondering if the weather would get so bad that it would force me to sleep inside for the night. The floorboards creaked with every step. Soon the rain and wind outside got so heavy it felt like the small cabin started to shake. It was a tiny space. There was only a living area with a small bathroom. No furniture remained. Only a rusted, useless stove. At least the fireplace still worked. It took a few minutes to get the fire going. Then I took out my flashlight, trying to see better in the gray light. The wooden floors were less rotten inside. There were some odd spots where someone had scrubbed them as clean as the old wood could be. I got down low to run my fingertips over old scratches on the floor. Tracing my fingers over them, I realized they looked to be made by something with fur claws. For an hour, I crawled over the floor, desperately looking for anything. A scrap of fabric or some blood stains. I needed proof that my sister had been here. Just before I gave up, my light caught something between the cracks of the floorboards. I used my Swiss Army knife and carefully lifted the small object out from between the two boards. When it was in my hand, my heart nearly stopped from pain. I held a small silver letter charm. When my sister graduated, I bought her a bracelet that you could add charms to. The first one was an L for Lexi. She hated going by Alex, but as a big brother, I used her full name to annoy her. I gave her the bracelet to apologize for not respecting her name and promised to be better. I expected to get emotional finding something of hers. I've been almost numb since I heard about her disappearance. Even thinking her name almost felt to be too much. But now, I only felt a deep heat inside my chest. The charm was put away somewhere safe. I didn't care if whatever was in the woods was a Wendigo or a guy who just lost it. I was going to kill him. The storm outside picked up. At some points, the thunder and wind made the entire building tremble. I didn't want to be inside if the roof came down, but I wouldn't be able to see if I went outside. My stomach was too stressed for dinner. For hours I sat, facing the door with a blanket to try and keep away the early spring chill. I planned to stay out here for as long as my food held out for. I didn't need to wait that long. When the storm started to die down, an odd smell came into the air. I buried my nose in the blanket, trying to avoid it. It grew so strong my eyes started to water before I started to get adjusted to it. When I was younger, a trash bag broke when I tried to take it out of the can. Inside were some freezer-burned steaks we had thrown out along with other food waste. This smell was similar but much more pungent than days-old rotten food sitting in the summer heat. Since the rain died down, I could hear the footsteps from outside getting closer to the door as the smell grew. My fingers tensed, ready to draw my weapon. So very slowly the door started to open, creaking as it did so. A tall, thin figure took a single step inside the cabin. My eyes had long since adjusted to the dark. Because of this, my body froze in fear seeing what had just entered the cabin. He wore scraps of dirty, stained clothing. The lips were torn away, revealing pale gums. This person had no muscle mass and looked to be a walking skeleton with a thin layer of skin clinging to their bones. Long, dirty fingernails gave the bony hands a dangerous appearance. For a moment, the eyes appeared to glow white, causing my heart to skip a few beats. When it met my eyes, it smiled and inhaled a rancid breath. I snapped out of my trace. Within a second, I threw off the blanket and started firing. Even in the dark, I should have hit him at such a close distance. I lost count of how many times I pulled the trigger. Dark blood that appeared black poured from 3 bullet wounds on its chest, and yet those long legs covered the distance between us, showing not an ounce of pain. It fell on me. I kicked, threw punches, and did everything I could to get that vile creature away. To my horror, it started laughing. My arms were pinned down by strength it should not possess. I've never felt so scared and helpless before. "You smell like her?" A low voice rasped. I felt as disgusted as I was angry. I hated this thing with every single fiber. Amused, he brought his face closer. The stench was almost overwhelming. Thick blood dripped onto my clothing, soaking through. Strangely, it felt ice cold. This terrifying creature couldn't be natural. Are you jealous? He spoke through rotten teeth. You loved her, and yet I was the one to eat her. To have her be a part of me forever. Don't you wish it was you? I shut my eyes, trying to force back the sheer rage. A chill ran down my back as my mind thought of something I tried to hide from. That I had nothing left of my sister. Everything she left behind didn't feel like hers. Not even the charm I found. She was gone from this world, and I couldn't seem to find anything to hold on to. A sound came from myself I first assumed was a wild animal outside. I forced everything into my arms to throw off this creature. It tried to recover and claw at my face. In my fury, I lashed out and bit down so hard on one of its fingers that my teeth ripped it off. I spat out the foul thing, the blood almost like acid in my mouth. He reeled back in pain long enough for me to grab the blanket. In one swift moment, I tossed it over the creature's face, blinding it long enough to grab the pistol I had dropped in the earlier struggle. Pressing it to the creature's skull under the blanket, I fired until it was empty. More dark blood started to soak the material. With burning lungs, I crawled away, waiting for the thing to move again. Surely it was dead. It needed to be dead. And yet it sat up, black stained blanket still over its face. Was I just seeing things? Do you still love her? It spoke in a garbled voice. Shut up, I hissed. She's still here. It raised pale, thin arms as if trying to offer something. I shook my head, trying to refuse what I was seeing. I love you because she loved you. I took her into myself. We can all be together. Don't you want that? Rage boiled over. A heavy-duty flashlight sat waiting on the floor next to my pack. I grabbed it in a blind rage. The first impact against the creature's skull painfully ran up my arm. After that, I don't remember much. Not how many strikes I brought down. Not when the flashlight broke, and when I switched to my fists. Or when I broke my fingers from punching down as hard as I could. All while that monster laughed. I eventually collapsed. Body and mind wore thin. When I woke, the light of dawn crept through the dusty windows. For a moment, I thought what happened had been a dream. When I sat up, I found the beaten body of the creature where I left it. I considered burning down the entire cabin with the body inside. My hands were so ruined from the beating that I couldn't light a fire. Instead, I dragged the body into the woods and then kicked leaves to cover as much of him as I could. When my hands recovered, I was coming back to set a much-needed fire. The hike back was brutal. Either I hid my broken hands well, or the owner of the motel didn't care. I knew I couldn't go to a hospital for my injuries. I just collapsed in the motel bed, trying to fight back the pain long enough to rest. A few hours later, a knock at the door dragged me from my nightmares. I almost didn't answer it, just in case there was something wrong with my credit card. I opened the door wondering if I was going to be kicked out. Instead, Ranger Dan was on the other side holding a first aid kit. He silently walked inside. I let him work on the cuts and broken bones and was relieved it wasn't as bad as it felt. There were 2 sons, you know. He started not looking up from his work. The oldest son wasn't at the cabin with his younger siblings. He blamed himself for what happened and killed his younger brother. Then the strangest thing started to happen. He grew sickly and distant. Soon, he left town for the cabin where his sisters had died. We all knew something wasn't right with him, but we didn't know how bad. It was until the bones, missing the marrow, showed up after some hikers disappeared over the years. I chewed on my cheek, tasting blood. These people had known for years about the monster in the woods, and they had done nothing. My sister, my dear Lexi, was dead because of that. I sat grinding my teeth in silent anger. Are you heading home or somewhere else? The ranger asked in a serious voice. At first, I didn't know what he meant. I had killed what took my sister away, but I didn't feel as if I had a home to return to. It would be impossible to just go back to my regular life after this. He spoke again, and his next question made my body turn cold. Are you hungry? I was starving, which was to be expected because I hadn't eaten much in almost 2 days. This hunger was different. It hurt so deep down inside it should be impossible. Like a black hole had opened in my stomach. Why did you never kill what was in the forest? I asked in a shaking voice. For once, he answered my question. It can't be killed. He finished up his task and left the room, not even looking back. Once he was gone, my body started to shake. I was cold. So damn cold. No amount of hot water from the shower helped. Something was wrong with me, and I didn't want to admit it. I'm going back into those woods. I need to burn a Wendigo. But I didn't want Lexi to have died without anyone knowing what happened to her. I may not be able to come back out of those woods. Honestly, I would like to believe my mind snapped from the intensity of what happened. But didn't people say crazy people don't know they're crazy? I knew the vast, empty hunger was insane. I knew this cold running through my body wasn't natural. And I know sane people don't start chewing layers off their lips. I'm scared of what I'm becoming. Crazy or a Wendigo. Either way, I love my sister, and fire should solve this problem before I pass it on to someone else. Third story. Did I encounter a Skinwalker? Or was it something else? This experience is one I never shared with anyone besides my brother. When I was about 13, I was living in rural BC. One night I was in the hot tub on the deck outside just watching the woods, taking in the silence. It was wintertime, and we just recently had a snowfall that left around knee-height deep of snow. It was around 2 to 3 a.m., and out of nowhere this very large wolf, bigger than one I have ever seen by far, came out of the woods. I remember its coat being a shimmering silver and its bright piercing green eyes. As this wolf was walking along the fence of our paddocks, it locked eyes with mine, and we just kind of stared at each other as he walked past me, both alone in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. What happened next, till this day, instantly makes my spine shiver. As the wolf walked past, he walked towards our barn with our horses in it. It became darker as it entered the barn, but the other side of the barn still had a bright light illuminating the outside that I could clearly see. This wolf, as it entered, halfway through it went from the shape of a wolf to a very large, broad-shouldered person. The horses didn't make a single sound, and this person that now stood roughly 7 feet tall rounded the corner towards the open field, but didn't emerge from the other side, and I never saw it again. My brother had his own encounter with this same wolf, I'm guessing. He told me that he woke up randomly one night from the feeling of being watched. He then looked out his window to see a very large wolf walking away from his window, so I'm guessing it was watching him sleep. This place we lived at was old native ground. Our barn was an old schoolhouse where the Catholic priest would put the native children and teach them lessons on Christ. It even had the old desk and chairs inside still. My brother and I both saw children's faces in the panes of glass from that barn and lights turning on randomly. We had closet doors slam repeatedly for minutes at a time, footsteps and feelings of being watched. In my room, I saw glowing red eyes on the ceiling, and I hid under my covers till morning. Anyways, my main subject of this post, and what I'm more seeking answers for, is what did I encounter outside in the middle of the night? After I looked around myself, the closest thing I could find was skinwalkers or wendigos, but from I read these creatures have deformed features or things that make them uncanny or straight up horrific. What I saw, nothing struck me as abnormal about this wolf besides its massive size until it literally changed its entire form in front of me. I know this is a long-winded read. Sorry, I'm not a great storyteller, and there's just so much that I experienced at this property that this just scratches the surface to everything. The wolf incident is just something I've never really been able to grasp and always wanted some kind of answer because it feels and sounds unbelievable. I also understand that the term Skinwalker is Navajo lore and doesn't correlate with BC tribes, but this is just a representation of what I saw with the closest accuracy. Fourth story. Wendigos. Are they real? I'm Max, a guy who doesn't buy into all that supernatural jazz. My journey across Canada was a quest for serenity, a break from the chaos of the city. But fate had its own plans. I met Sarah on the road to the nearest town bordering the eerie Canadian forest. She's got this easygoing charm, a natural warmth that makes you feel like you've known her for ages. An artist by passion and an adventurer at heart. She seemed to find magic in every little thing. Our drive was smooth until we decided to take a less-traveled shortcut through the woods. Sarah was brimming with enthusiasm, pointing out every scenic spot and sharing quirky tales about the area. Then, as if the woods were playing a prank on us, my car decided it needed a break. With a splutter and a groan, it called it quits right in the middle of nowhere. Sarah handled the situation with her trademark grace, cracking jokes about forest spirits playing car pranks. Her laughter was a comforting melody amidst the encroaching dusk, especially as the sun dipped casting strange shadows in the woods. "I guess we're camping here tonight," I said, trying to sound cool, but my mind was racing, recalling those spine-tingling stories about these woods. "Looks like an impromptu forest sleepover," Sarah quipped, her eyes twinkling with adventure. As twilight descended upon us, a mix of apprehension and curiosity settled in. Little did I know, that night in the woods was just the beginning of an extraordinary and unpredictable escapade. As the night wore on, the forest seemed to come alive in ways I couldn't comprehend. Sarah and I sat close, huddled by the dim light cast by the car, our minds grappling with the inexplicable silence that enveloped us. "I've heard tales about these woods," Sarah began softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whispers of ancient spirits, Wendigos lurking in the shadows, hungry for lost souls." My skepticism battled with a growing sense of unease. "You don't really believe in that stuff, do you?" I questioned, my voice tinged with a hint of disbelief. Sarah's gaze turned distant, as if she was peering into a realm beyond our understanding. "There are things in this world, Max, things that defy logic and reason. Stories passed down through generations often carry fragments of truth," she murmured, her words hanging heavy in the still night air. The forest remained shrouded in an eerie quietude, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. I strained my ears, trying to decipher the cryptic language of the woods. Then, a chilling sound echoed through the night, a haunting, indescribable howl that seemed to emanate from the heart of the forest. Sarah's grip on my hand tightened, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "Tell me that's just an animal," I whispered, my voice betraying a trace of dread. But Sarah remained silent, her gaze fixed on the darkness beyond our refuge. It was as though the forest itself held its breath, acknowledging the presence of something otherworldly. As the night wore on, sleep eluded us, the air thick with anticipation and an unspoken understanding that we were not alone in these woods. The paranormal tales I once scoffed at now hovered at the edge of my consciousness, leaving me to grapple with the inexplicable and the unknown. The night stretched endlessly, an unyielding embrace of mystery and foreboding. Little did I know, the secrets these woods held were far more profound and unsettling than anything I had ever imagined. Nightfall enveloped us. Every shadow seemed to harbor a secret, and each whisper of the wind fueled the tension that had settled between Sarah and me. We stayed alert, our senses heightened, listening to every crack and rustle in our surroundings. Suddenly, a sound shattered the stillness. A branch snapping. We exchanged concerned glances, our hearts pounding in unison in the darkness. Fears of the unknown hijacked our imaginations. Then, emerging from the shadows, a figure appeared. With cautious steps, it drew nearer to us. The atmosphere became stifling, filled with an expectant silence. As it approached, the moonlight revealed its identity, a dog. Not just any dog. It wore a handmade collar woven with tiny bones, emitting an unsettling yet intriguing aura. That's the dog I saw on the wanted posters in the town," murmured Sarah, her voice a mix of relief and surprise. The canine drew closer, its eyes expressing gratitude and a peculiar kind of camaraderie, as if it knew us somehow. Despite the eerie collar, its gaze conveyed a sense of calmness, as if reassuring us that we were safe. The tension gradually dissipated as the dog settled by our feet, seeking refuge and protection. Though its initial presence had enshrouded us in mysterious suspense, we now felt a sense of relief, realizing that perhaps the only being lurking in these woods was this faithful companion. We stood there, in the stillness of the night, the dog at our side, gazing at the stars as uncertainty gave way to a sense of connection with this creature who, somehow, had found its way to us amidst the darkness. With the dog nestled by our side, a calm settled over us. Sarah and I found ourselves drawn into a conversation that delved beyond the surface, revealing aspects of ourselves we hadn't shared before. "You strike me as someone who loves a good challenge," Sarah remarked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between us. I chuckled softly. Guilty as charged. I tend to dive headfirst into things, seeking that thrill of the unknown. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. I've always been drawn to art, to stories that breathe life into the mundane. They help me see beyond what's visible, finding beauty in the unnoticed. Her words resonated with me, drawing a parallel to my own quest for the extraordinary. I get that, I replied. Sometimes, the world's magic lies in the smallest details, the stories waiting to be told. As our conversation meandered through our passions and quirks, the tension of the night seemed to dissipate, replaced by a genuine connection. We shared stories of childhood adventures, dreams we harbored, and fears we kept hidden. So, what brings you to these parts? I finally asked, curiosity nudging me to uncover more about her. Sarah smiled softly. I seek inspiration in the unexplored. There's an energy here, a mystique that whispers tales waiting to be painted. Her words stirred something within me, a longing for a deeper connection with the world around me. I guess we're not that different, I admitted. I embarked on this journey to find a piece of myself I felt was missing. As the night wore on, our conversation flowed effortlessly, each revelation strengthening the bond between us. With the dog as our silent companion, we found solace in the shared tales of our lives, unveiling layers of our personalities under the starlit sky. The night wrapped us in an eerie calmness. Sarah and I were engrossed in our conversation when the forest fell into an unsettling stillness. I shivered, an inexplicable unease settling in my bones. You know, when a forest goes silent, it's rarely a good sign, I muttered, an involuntary chill creeping down my spine. It was a truth I'd learned in my wilderness treks. A silence like this hinted at lurking danger. Before Sarah could respond, a deafening, inhuman cry pierced the silence. The dog bolted, its fur bristling as it dashed towards the source of the sound, disappearing into the dense woods. What in the world was that? Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with alarm. Maybe an elk or something else, I replied, trying to mask my own unease with rationality. But deep down, I knew that sound didn't belong to any forest creature I'd ever encountered. Instinct kicked in, adrenaline surging through me as we chased after the dog, our footsteps pounding against the forest floor. The darkness seemed to swallow us whole as we ventured deeper into the woods. Each step echoed with an unspoken fear, the rustling leaves and cracking branches around us a haunting symphony. Where did he go? Sarah's voice trembled, panic lacing her words. I don't know, but we need to find him, I urged, my heart racing with a mix of worry and foreboding. As we pushed deeper into the forest's heart, an ominous realization gripped us. Something beyond the ordinary lurked within these woods. We plunged deeper into the darkened woods. Our frantic calls for the dog met with a haunting silence. The air hung heavy with tension, every step echoing our growing apprehension. Then, amidst the oppressive silence, a thunderous rhythm of galloping footsteps thundered toward us. Panic surged through me, primal instincts kicking in. Run! I shouted to Sarah, the urgency in my voice betraying the fear clawing at my insides. Our feet pounded against the forest floor, a cacophony of terror-fueled steps. The thundering sound seemed to gain on us, getting closer with each passing moment. But in that panic sprint, I stumbled, my foot catching on a protruding root. I pitched forward, the ground rushing up to meet me. A sickening crack echoed through the woods as my head connected with an unforgiving rock, and darkness enveloped me. The last thing I remember is a flurry of movement, Sarah's voice calling out my name in desperation, and the thundering gallops fading into an ominous silence as everything went black. A faint, distant murmur pulled me from the abyss of unconsciousness. My eyes blinked open to a world draped in shadowy hues. Panic surged as I sat up, the dry crust of blood on my forehead sending shivers down my spine. The forest lay before me, desolate and eerily silent. Sarah, I called out, my voice barely a whisper in the vastness of the woods. No response. No signs of the faithful canine companion either. A feeble light filtered through the dense canopy, casting a muted glow. Had dawn broken? No, it hadn't. I realized with a sinking feeling that I'd been unconscious for almost a day. Hours remained until the onset of another night, another cycle of darkness. Fumbling to my feet, a disorienting wave of dizziness swept over me. The world spun as I steadied myself against a nearby tree, a pounding headache pulsating in tandem with my racing heart. I frantically searched for any signs of Sarah, any clue about what had transpired in my absence. But the woods held on to their secrets, whispering nothing but an ominous quietude. Gritting my teeth against the fear threatening to overwhelm me, I knew I had to find her, find some semblance of answers before the shroud of night descended once more. The forest stood poised in a liminal state, caught between the fading remnants of the night and the impending darkness. And in this eerie in-between, I stood alone, with the chilling realization that the mysteries of these woods had only just begun to unfold. Staggering through the silent woods, I felt the weight of impending darkness bearing down on me. The hours had slipped away, leaving behind an ominous hush that settled over the trees like a heavy shroud. I stumbled forward, each step an arduous effort, as I fought against both physical and emotional exhaustion. Fear and a desperate need to find Sarah surged within me, propelling me deeper into the heart of the woods. Then, amidst the suffocating quietude, a distant echo caught my attention. A soft whimper, almost imperceptible. My heart skipped a beat. Was it the dog? Could it be Sarah? Driven by hope, I followed the sound, branches clawing at me as I pushed through the dense underbrush. The fleeting light dimmed further, a foreboding chill seeping into the air. As I advanced, the faint glimmer of the moon illuminated a figure lying on the forest floor. Relief washed over me as I recognized Sarah's silhouette, curled up beneath the canopy of trees. "Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling with a mix of worry and relief. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open, but something seemed amiss. "Max? What happened?" Her voice was weak, tinged with confusion. I knelt beside her, my heart pounding with a whirlwind of emotions. "I don't know. We got separated, I fell, and then I woke up alone." A fleeting sense of safety washed over us, finding solace in each other's presence in the heart of this enigmatic forest. Yet, as the last traces of light faded from the sky, the encroaching darkness whispered of untold dangers, reminding us that the night held secrets we were yet to uncover. The chill of the night wrapped around us, a constant reminder of the lurking mysteries in these woods. Sarah and I huddled together, seeking warmth and reassurance amidst the encroaching darkness. But as the night wore on, a persistent unease settled within me, a gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. A sharp pang sliced through my temples, a sudden, intense pain seizing my senses. I winced, gripping my head, trying to ward off the crippling ache. It felt as though my skull was splitting apart, a relentless assault on my senses. I collapsed to the forest floor, the pain overwhelming any coherent thought. Darkness encroached at the edges of my vision, threatening to pull me under. With a desperate gasp, I fought against the encroaching unconsciousness. When I finally awoke, it was to a world cloaked in the eerie glow of midnight. Confusion clouded my mind as I tried to piece together the events. But as awareness flooded back, a stark realization struck me with chilling clarity. I wasn't with Sarah. Instead, the loyal canine companion lay beside me, its gentle eyes peering at me with a mix of concern and familiarity. Panic surged through me as I struggled to comprehend the twisted reality. My mind had played a cruel trick, conjuring a false narrative amidst the chaos of the head injury. I had mistaken the dog for Sarah in my delirium. Frantic and disoriented, I called out for Sarah, the echoes of my voice swallowed by the silent expanse of the woods. But there was no response, no trace of her amidst the shadows that stretched across the forest floor. Reality, crashed down upon me like a relentless wave. The impact had not only disoriented me physically, but had shattered the fragile illusion of safety and companionship in this desolate place. I was alone, lost in a realm of uncertainty and unforeseen dangers. Gathering my scattered thoughts, I tried to retrace my steps, to make sense of the fragmented memories and the ominous events that had unfolded. The dog stayed by my side, a silent companion offering solace in the midst of confusion. With a heavy heart, I embarked on a solitary journey through the haunting woods, each step a reminder of the tangled web of mysteries that awaited me. The night whispered secrets I was yet to decipher, and the shadows concealed truths that eluded my grasp. As the moon cast its silvery glow upon the landscape, I pressed forward, driven by a relentless determination to unravel the enigma that had entangled me in this surreal and treacherous journey. The clearing in the forest appeared suspended in a perpetual state of desolation. Life had withered away, leaving behind a landscape of wilted vegetation and an eerie silence. My steps echoed in the emptiness, breaking the ominous quietness that enveloped the place. Small scattered skeletons and the complete absence of any animal life painted a disconcerting picture, one that evoked a deep sense of fear within me. My gaze fixated on the cave that stood in the distance, a dark opening that seemed to be the epicenter of this desolation. A cold, damp draft escaped its mouth, like a mysterious whisper calling me toward its interior. My mind grappled between curiosity and the instinctual warning that this place wasn't safe. What secrets or dangers lay hidden within that cavernous darkness? My heart pounded, uncertainty clouding my thoughts. The dog, my silent companion in this surreal journey, remained by my side, its eyes filled with loyalty and an uncanny animal wisdom. Its presence seemed to offer a sliver of courage amidst the darkness. The mystery shrouding the cave was palpable, an enigmatic invitation tempting my curiosity and challenging my prudence. Was it wise to venture into the jaws of the unknown? I couldn't ignore the sense of danger that clung to my intuition. Time hung, suspended in a moment of hesitation, my mind weighing the possibilities while my instincts urged caution. Night was looming, its shadows slowly encroaching upon the clearing, a subtle warning that time was running short. Then, a decision solidified within me, fueled by the need for answers and the will to confront whatever awaited in the darkness. With cautious steps, I approached the cave's entrance, every fiber of my being alert to any hint of danger. The dog emitted a soft growl, its gaze fixed on the cave's mouth, as if trying to warn me of something invisible to my eyes. Its gesture reignited my unease, but an indomitable impulse pushed me forward. With a deep breath, I crossed the threshold of the cave, plunging into the darkness that devoured the light. The air grew denser, laden with an earthy and mysterious aroma, as if it were imbued with centuries of secrets held within the earth's depths. The echo of my footsteps reverberated against the rocky walls, my hands feeling the cold contours of the cave, searching for any clue that might guide me. The darkness was overwhelming, but a glimmer of determination burned within me, propelling me forward in search of answers. Each step was a challenge, an internal struggle between the desire to uncover the truth and the terror of the unknown. The cave seemed like an endless maze, its secrets hidden in the shadows, waiting to be unraveled or forever guarded by the veil of mystery. The dog remained by my side, its comforting presence amidst the dimness. Its animal senses seemed alert, its eyes scanning the surroundings as if anticipating some hidden danger in the darkness. A distant whisper echoed in the cavern, a barely perceptible murmur that enveloped my senses with a sense of unease. Was the cave witness to an ancient secret, or was it the dwelling place of something more sinister? Time blurred in the darkness, each minute feeling like an eternity as I ventured deeper into the cavern's depths. More and more, the sense of intrigue mingled with the palpable fear that stirred in the rarefied air. Amidst the blackness, a revelation materialized. The challenge of the cave lay not only in its nooks and passageways, but in the enigmas and dangers that lurked, concealed within, challenging my courage and sanity. As I ventured deeper into the cavern, shadows danced ominously on the walls, amplifying the eerie silence that enveloped the space. The air grew heavier, thick with an unidentifiable scent that sent shivers down my spine. Then, in the dimness, shapes began to emerge, bodies strewn across the cave floor, a macabre sight that froze the blood in my veins. My heart sank at the grim reality of death that surrounded me. Amidst the lifeless forms, a sense of dread gripped me as I noticed Sarah lying unconscious but miraculously alive among the corpses. With urgency coursing through my veins, I hurried toward her, intent on rescuing her from this haunting place. But as I approached, the dog, sensing something amiss, grew restless, its bark piercing the oppressive silence of the cave. Before I could reach Sarah, a bone-chilling presence filled the cavern, an entity that defied the laws of nature and reason. The Wendigo, towering over 2 meters tall, its form contorted and unsettling, staggered into the cave, its very presence a manifestation of primal terror. I retreated, seeking cover among the lifeless bodies and foliage, my breath hitching in fear. The Wendigo's ominous aura seemed to suffocate the air, its looming figure casting a malevolent shadow over the scene. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched in horror, hidden from view, as the monstrous entity approached the dog, its movements predatory and menacing. The poor creature's barks turned to whimpers, a futile attempt at warding off the inevitable. With a single brutal strike, the Wendigo ended the dog's life, a sight that pierced through my soul like a dagger. I clenched my teeth to stifle a cry, a wave of helplessness washing over me as the creature began to feed on the life it had just extinguished. Terror rooted me to the spot, my body trembling as I bore witness to the gruesome spectacle unfolding before my eyes. The Wendigo's insatiable hunger was a harrowing sight, its savagery a stark reminder of the unfathomable horrors lurking within these accursed woods. I prayed for some semblance of escape from this waking nightmare, but the darkness of the cave held me captive, a silent witness to the unspeakable brutality of this unearthly being. The plan had formed in my mind, even amidst the horror unfolding before me. With determination, I approached Sarah, assessing her delicate condition. Her injured leg was a concern, and her unconscious state added a layer of difficulty to our imminent escape. The creature, oblivious to my presence, had retreated from the cave after its grisly meal. I knew I had to act swiftly before it returned in search of more prey. Carefully, I lifted Sarah into my arms, her body light but fragile. Concern for her well-being mingled with the urgency to flee that accursed place. Every step was a challenge, each movement calculated to avoid causing further harm to Sarah's injured leg. The weight of responsibility clung to my shoulders. Time was not on our side. The mouth of the cave loomed before me, the hope of escaping that inferno beginning to take shape. But every rustle in the forest, every shadow shifting in the darkness, fueled my fear of being discovered by that monstrous being lurking in the shadows. With each step, the urgency grew. The exit was in sight when a shiver ran down my spine, a foreboding sense warning me that the Wendigo was nearing. The sound of crunching branches and a menacing hiss echoed behind me. There was no time to waste. With a superhuman effort, I quickened my pace, dodging the danger and entering the relative safety of the forest. My ragged breaths and the weight of Sarah in my arms combined with the anxiety of escaping that living nightmare. Each inhale, each beat of my heart, was a reminder of the struggle for survival. I ran as fast as I could, seeking refuge and protection for Sarah and myself. The forest seemed conspiratorial, every noise, every shadow, igniting the fear that was engulfing me. Finally, I found a secure hiding spot, far from the cave and beyond the Wendigo's reach. I carefully placed Sarah in a safe location, watching over her with concern while attempting to keep at bay the panic threatening to engulf me. My mind raced, weighing options, seeking a way to get help or find an escape from that torment. But for now, the priority was to ensure we were out of that creature's reach, find assistance, and a path to salvation. Unfortunately, what I've told you isn't my story. While Max and Sarah did exist, well, they existed. I'm just a search and rescue guy tasked with finding these people. As part of the search and rescue team, our priority was locating two missing individuals, Max and Sarah. Their disappearance had us on edge, and our efforts to find them led us deep into an undisclosed and secluded area. Amidst the dense forest, we stumbled upon a discovery that sent shivers down our spines: a weathered notebook. Its contents held a gripping tale, a first-hand account of harrowing encounters with an unknown creature. The details were vivid, the emotions raw, and every entry felt like a real-life experience. As I read through the pages, the story transitioned into a warning. It seemed to convey the inherent danger of the events described, urging extreme caution for anyone daring to venture into that area. The descriptions of the creature were so vivid and haunting that they felt eerily tangible. The authenticity of the notebook's account struck a chord within the team. We couldn't dismiss it as mere fiction. The descriptions were too detailed, too genuine to ignore. The warning it carried felt like a genuine caution against something inexplicable. Our search for Max and Sarah yielded no results, leaving us with more questions than answers. The notebook remained a cryptic piece of the puzzle, hinting at a reality too unfathomable for conventional explanation. As a seasoned member of the search and rescue team, it was a stark reminder of the unforeseen dangers lurking in unexplored territories. We handled the notebook with caution, treating its contents as a solemn warning, a testament to the potential perils of the unknown. And yes, we found that cave, but no one was inside, just rests of that dog and some strange with sticks figures with some hair, and somehow it was DNA compatible with those people. Fifth story: the Skinwalkers of Wisconsin. It was a weekend. I was out hunting in the northern forests of Wisconsin. I was walking through the woods. It was near dark when I came across a clearing. It couldn't have been more than 50 feet in diameter. Then I saw it, the largest buck I had ever seen. I then laid down on my stomach and pointed my rifle at its heart. The buck must have heard me as it looked in my direction, but it didn't see me, so it went back to grazing in the field. As I pulled the trigger of my rifle, a large branch snapped behind, and I thought I saw a wolf running off beside me, causing me to flinch and miss my shot, hitting the buck in the side of the torso. As the buck let out a scream, I know I had hit something important. As its side was gushing blood, it still ran, but I knew it would die at some point soon from its wound. I just had to follow the blood as it ran. I followed the blood trail for a few minutes before coming across a much larger clearing, at least 300 feet in diameter, and I saw movement at the other end of the clearing. Thinking it was the buck, I got back onto my stomach and chest and aimed my scope at the movement to see what it was, seeing a wolf eating the buck. I was disappointed the wolf had killed the buck before I could, but I just watched it, in awe by the cruelty yet beauty of nature. But then I saw something. Was that a hand where the wolf's paw should be? No, it couldn't be. It must just be a scratch from the wolf. But did it have human teeth? I shifted a bit in my spot to try and see better, snapping a twig. There's no way the wolf could have heard me, but its head then snapped up to me on the small raised plateau I was on. It looked like it had human eyes, and it looked like it smiled at me. And it then stood up on its hind legs, still looking at me, deer's throat gripped in its long-fingered hand. This scared me so much I dropped my rifle, and in the second it took me to look down and grab my rifle again, the wolf was already halfway across the clearing. There was no way it could have gotten there that fast. As I looked back up at it, it stopped running, still looking at me. What the fuck? I whispered under my breath. Terrified, I stayed where I was and stood up with my rifle aimed at it, still looking at the wolf. There was no way it could be a wolf, but the one thing I've learned from my 16 years of hunting and camping: never turn your back on and run from a predator that was hunting you. The wolf then opened its mouth like it was yawning, but it then let out a scream that sounded part human scream, part howl, and part animalistic screech, as it then looked like the wolf frowned at me like it was disappointed in me standing my ground, before walking back to the deer and crouching down before continuing to eat it, as I then turned and ran for at least an hour back to my car. That horrifying scream playing in my head on repeat before I practically dived into my car. It was the Happiest I'd ever been to see that old piece of shit in my entire life as I then drove home. I didn't turn the radio on, I just drove in silence. When I got home, I just cried in my car from fear of what had happened and joy from finally being safe for at least 5 minutes before finally getting out of the car and running into my house, locking every door and window and pulling every curtain shut. If you ever go hunting in the woods of northern Wisconsin, do not stay if you come across a wolf eating. Those things don't like it when you stare. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comment section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.